The envelope was still on the table. Adaeze stared at it. 3 seconds. Then she picked up her bag and walked out of Kim Joon-soo's apartment without a single word, and the sound of that door closing was the quietest, most devastating thing she had ever done. Outside, Lagos swallowed her whole. Okada horns. Generator hum. A woman frying akara on the corner, oil spitting, smoke rising. The world had no interest in her heartbreak. It never did. She did not cry until she was in the car. And even then she hated herself for it. 6 weeks. 6 weeks of telling herself it was professional. That the way he looked at her across a blueprint meant nothing. That laughter at a construction site canteen over terrible jollof rice was just 2 colleagues being human. 6 weeks of lying to herself with increasing creativity, and then 1 envelope with the name Park Seo-yeon on the return address had stripped every lie down to the bone. He had come to Lagos with a woman waiting in Seoul. A woman his family had chosen. A woman he had never mentioned, not once, in 6 weeks of what Adaeze had foolishly, privately, begun to call the best thing that had ever happened to her. She drove home. She sat in her apartment in the dark. She did not call anyone. Her phone buzzed. Joon-soo. She watched his name light up the screen 4 times and went to bed. She had met him 43 days ago at a Lagos mainland market, and she had walked directly into him like she was not a woman who paid attention to where she was going, which she always was, which made the whole thing worse. Papers had gone everywhere. Blueprints. A red folder. 3 years of low-income housing designs skidding across dusty concrete. She had crouched to gather them, furious, and looked up, and there he was. Korean, late 20s, rumpled suit, completely disoriented, holding 3 of her architectural drawings with an expression of someone who had just realized they were extremely lost. "Josunghamnida," he started, then switched. "I'm sorry. This is entirely my fault." "Yes," she said. "It is." He blinked. Then he laughed. Not a polite, apologetic laugh. A real one, sudden and unguarded, like she had surprised it out of him. "You didn't even pause," he said. "I have somewhere to be." She stood, brushed her skirt, extended her hand. "You're holding my blueprints." He looked down. He was indeed. He handed them over carefully, almost reverently, and then he said the thing that stopped her mid-turn. "These are incredible. Who designed them?" "I did." "You're the architect?" "You're surprised." "I'm impressed." He said it simply, with no performance behind it. "Kim Joon-soo. I'm here for the Kara Lagos Urban Housing Summit." She looked at him for a long beat. Something clicked. Bae and Kim Architecture. Seoul. Junior partner. Adaeze Okonkwo, she said slowly. "Lead architect for the Lagos low-income housing project you're here to evaluate." The market moved around them. A woman yelled something about tomatoes. The wind shifted. Joon-soo looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "That's either very convenient," he said, "or very complicated." "It's neither," she said, already walking. "See you tomorrow, Mr. Kim." She told herself she didn't think about him that night. She was lying. The presentation was the best she had ever given. She knew it even as she was giving it, that rare, electric certainty of a thing clicking into place. 7 Seoul executives sat across from her in a conference room on Lagos Island, and she felt every one of them shift from skepticism to attention within the first 4 minutes. She spoke about load-bearing ratios, drainage systems, cost projections, and then she spoke about the courtyard structures she had designed into the heart of every residential block. Traditional Igbo architecture, repurposed, rebuilt, made modern. She had not been asked to include them. She had included them anyway. When the room emptied, she was gathering her materials when she heard his voice behind her. "The courtyard integration," Joon-soo said. "That wasn't in the brief." "No," she said, steeling herself. "If that's a problem. It's the reason I'm recommending full funding." She turned. He was standing with his hands in his pockets, looking at her with that same unreadable expression from the market. "You built homes for people who look like your grandmother," he said quietly. "Anyone can build a structure. You built belonging." She stood very still. "Why did you come to Lagos?" she asked. "From Seoul. Specifically." He paused. Something moved behind his eyes, there and gone. "I needed somewhere that felt real again," he said. She didn't know what to do with that. She nodded once and left. But on the way to her car she sat in the driver's seat for 3 full minutes before she turned the key, staring at nothing, wondering what exactly was wrong with her. Weeks passed. The project began. They worked side by side daily, and she told herself this was normal, was professional, was not at all the thing it was beginning to look like. He was a fast learner. She would give him that. He absorbed Lagos, the noise, the heat, the controlled chaos of a construction site run by 40 Nigerians with strong opinions, with a kind of quiet attentiveness that she found, against her will, disarming. He didn't perform adaptation. He just adapted. He learned to pronounce enemy correctly after she corrected him 4 times. He started writing his structural notes in Korean with English margin comments in handwriting so small she had to steal his pen to add her own. He sat on the hood of a site truck with her one evening, Lagos skyline ahead of them, and they didn't speak for 20 minutes and it was not uncomfortable. It was the opposite of uncomfortable. "Have you ever been in love?" he asked one evening when the site was quiet. She glanced at him. "You can ask." "I just did. Once," she said. He thought love meant ownership. She paused. "You?" "Yes," he said after a moment. "Once." Quieter. "I thought I knew what it was." "What happened?" He looked at the skyline. "I found out I was a character in someone else's story." She looked at him. He looked back. "That," she said, "is a very Korean way to say you got your heart broken." He laughed. She laughed. It overlapped. They were close. Close enough that she was aware of exactly how close, and neither of them moved away. Later she would mark that evening as the moment she stopped pretending. The power went out on a Thursday. It happened constantly in Lagos and she should have been used to it, but they were deep into revised load calculations and the timing was spectacular. The office emptied. The team had been waiting for an excuse to leave early, and within 10 minutes it was just Adaeze and Joon-soo, working by the light of their phone torches, bent over a blueprint spread across the table between them. "Hold the light higher," she said. "I'm trying." He shifted, bumped her shoulder. "Sorry. You say sorry for everything. Is that bad?" "It's," she paused. She was going to say annoying. She did not say annoying. "It's different." "Different from what you're used to?" "Different," she said carefully, "from anyone I've ever known." The words landed in the dark between them and she heard them the moment they were out of her mouth and she started to course correct. "I just meant." But he said her name. "Adaeze." She stopped. He turned toward her. The city sound came through the window, generators, traffic, a radio somewhere playing Afrobeats. He was close enough that she could see his expression clearly even without light. He wasn't performing anything. He wasn't managing anything. He was just looking at her. "I know what you meant," he said, voice low and deliberate. "And I know what I've been feeling for the past 6 weeks. And I know it is extremely professionally complicated." "It is," she whispered. "But I think you feel it too." She was quiet for so long that the silence itself became an answer. "What if I do?" she finally said. He reached out slowly, found her hand in the dark, held it, not urgently, not dramatically, just held it like he was making a decision and wanted her to feel the weight of it. The lights came back on. Neither of them moved. 2 months. She would think about those 2 months for the rest of her life. Sunday mornings at her apartment, him trying to make a gussie with a YouTube tutorial and complete, spectacular failure, her laughing so hard she couldn't breathe, him laughing too, the kitchen a disaster they cleaned up together. His rented apartment where she found a framed photograph of her he had printed. Not posed, not arranged, just her at the construction site looking at a blueprint, completely unaware of the camera, and she stood holding it for so long he appeared in the doorway and said nothing, just watched her face. Her friends meeting him. Their skepticism visible and magnificent and slowly, reluctantly, dissolving into something warmer. Him teaching her to write her name in Hangul, and her tracing the characters with her finger 3 times, 4 times, her face bent close to the paper like it was something she wanted to memorize. A night at a live music spot on Victoria Island. Afrobeats shaking the walls. Her head on his shoulder. His hand in her hair. Neither of them talking because there was nothing that needed to be said. "I tried to stay afraid," she would tell her closest friend later. "Fear had always been good to me. It kept me from the worst of things. But Joon-soo looked at me like I wasn't something to be managed. Like I was something to be known. And I hadn't been known in so long I'd forgotten it was possible." She let herself want it. She let herself have it. That was her mistake, trusting the world to let good things last. "Who is Park Seo-yeon?" 4 words. She watched his face go completely, immediately still. And she had her answer before he opened his mouth. "Adaeze." "Who is she?" Joon-soo. Not a question. He sat down. She stayed standing. "She's someone my family arranged for me to marry," he said quietly. "Before I came here." The room moved. She was certain the room moved. "Before you came here," she repeated. "I didn't love her. I never agreed to it. I came to Lagos partly to." "Partly." To escape the pressure from my family? You let me fall in love with you, she said, and her voice was doing that thing she hated, the thing where it went very controlled because the alternative was falling apart completely, without telling me there was a woman in Seoul. She's not waiting. I've been telling my family no for months. Have you? She picked up her bag. Her hands were steady. She was proud of her hands. Or did you come here, find a soft place to land, call it freedom, and forget to mention what you left behind? That is not what happened. I trusted you. She was at the door. She turned back once because she owed him that, she owed herself the dignity of saying it to his face. I gave you a part of me I have not given anyone in years. Not since the last man who thought I was something he could put down and pick back up when it suited him. Her voice cracked on the last word. She let it. Don't come to the site tomorrow. She left. He didn't follow. She heard him pick up his phone as the door closed. Then she heard him say in Korean, in a voice she had never heard from him before, flat and final and completely without argument. Abioji. Gunyowa Jilhan Haji Anol Gioya. She didn't speak Korean. She found out later what it meant. It meant, Dad. I'm not marrying her. She was already gone. 2 weeks. She came to work. He came to work. They moved around each other like opposing magnetic fields, close enough to feel, too charged to touch. The crew noticed. Of course the crew noticed. Oga engineer. Ikena, the site foreman, appeared beside her one morning while she stared at a drainage schematic she had been staring at for 15 minutes. The Korean man. He looks like somebody removed his heart and put it in a drawer. Focus on Section B drainage, Ikena. And you, he continued, undeterred, with the supreme confidence of a man who had watched people be foolish his entire life, look like the person who put it there. Ikena. I'm just saying. In my village, when two people both look that sad at the same time, it usually means they are choosing pride over sense. He shrugged. But what do I know? I'm just a foreman. He walked away. She stared at the schematic. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes were bright. She would not cry on a construction site. She was a professional. She almost cried on the construction site. He called her at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. One ring. She answered before she'd made the decision to answer. How bad, she said. No greeting. No softness. Just the question because something in the single ring had told her this was not personal. Section C. His voice was tight. Foundation fault. Wall crack. We have maybe 6 hours before it becomes irreversible. I'm on my way. She didn't think about what it meant that she was on her way. She got dressed, got in the car, and drove to the site, and when she arrived he was already there with 2 structural engineers and Ikena and a crack running the length of a wall that was supposed to house 12 families in 3 weeks. They worked. That was all. No words about them, not one, not a glance, just the work, the blueprints, the calculations, the sound of hammering and the smell of concrete and the absolute, muscle memory fluency of 2 people who had learned each other so completely that communication had become almost nonverbal. She would point. He would already be moving. He would recalculate. She would already be nodding. At 4 a.m. the last brace locked into place. The wall held. They sat down on the ground with their backs against the structure they had just saved, too exhausted to stand, covered in dust. The crew dispersed and the site suddenly, strangely quiet. Lagos kept going around them. It always did. He spoke without looking at her. I called off the arrangement, he said quietly. Completely. The day you left. Silence. Why didn't you tell me? She asked. Because I didn't think I had the right. He paused. I should have told you from the beginning. I was afraid that if you knew before you knew me, you'd never let me close. You should have trusted me with the truth. I know. I know. The silence that followed was different from the silence of the past 2 weeks. That silence had been cold. This one was tired. Tired and honest and cautiously, carefully open. I missed you, she said. Barely audible. She wasn't even sure she'd said it aloud until she felt him go still beside her. He turned. Looked at her for a long time. I missed you every single day, he said. She looked back at him. The city hummed. A rooster crowed somewhere, too early, always too early in Lagos, and she almost laughed and she saw the corner of his mouth move, and for a moment it was almost like before. But not quite yet. She found out about the cost from a colleague. Quietly, over lunch, delivered with the careful sympathy of someone who assumed she already knew and was only now realizing she didn't. Joon-soo's position in Lagos, cancelled. His return to Seoul, formally requested by the firm. His junior partnership, suspended pending a decision from the senior board. His grandfather's firm, built over 40 years, in which he held a future, a legacy, a name, now contingent on a choice he had already made. She went to him that evening. He was at his apartment, suit jacket off, sitting at the table with papers spread in front of him that he wasn't reading. "Tell me what it costs," she said. "All of it. Adaeze. All of it, Joon-soo." So he told her. Clearly, calmly, without self-pity or performance. The partnership. The inheritance. The family position. The 40-year legacy his grandfather had spent his life building. All of it now balanced on a fulcrum and tipping slowly in the wrong direction. She listened. She didn't move. "You're going to lose everything you've worked for," she said when he finished. "Not everything. Don't say that. It's the truth. I cannot be the reason." Her voice broke. She pressed on anyway. "I cannot be the thing that costs you. You are not something that happened to me." He stood. He faced her. His voice was not raised, but it was the most certain she had ever heard it. "You are the reason I know what I want. You do not get to take that and turn it into a burden. What if I made it easier and let you? Then you would be choosing for me." He stepped closer. "I spent 2 years letting other people choose for me. My firm. My family. Seo-yeon's family. Everyone had a plan for my life and I followed every one of them until I got on a plane to Lagos and walked into a woman in a market who told me I was holding her blueprints." She was crying. Fully, without apology. "This is my choice," he said. He held her face in both hands, gently, like she was something worth being careful with. "You are my choice." Mrs. Kim arrived from Seoul on a Tuesday. Unannounced. Elegant. Immovable, not with coldness but with the absolute architectural certainty of a woman who had decided what was correct a long time ago and had not yet been given sufficient reason to revise that decision. They sat across from each other at a restaurant on Lagos Island. Just the two of them. Joon-soo had asked Adaeze first. Adaeze had said she would go. She was terrified. She went anyway. "I came to understand," Mrs. Kim said in careful, deliberate English, "not to fight." "I appreciate that," Adaeze said. "My son is not a simple man. He feels things deeply and he does not say so. This makes him," she searched for the word, "easy to misread." "I know," Adaeze said quietly. "I've read him correctly." Mrs. Kim looked at her. A long measuring look. The kind that had nothing to do with cruelty and everything to do with a mother trying to see what her son saw. "He will lose much," Mrs. Kim said finally. "I know what he stands to lose. And you?" "I didn't ask him to choose," Adaeze said. "I want to be clear about that. I would have let him go." "He wouldn't let me let him go." She paused. "I think you know your son well enough to know that's true." Silence. Mrs. Kim looked at her hands. Then at the table. Then back up. "He has not looked at anything the way he looks at you," she said, "since he was a boy and still believed the world would cooperate with him." She said nothing more on the subject. She ordered tea. The airport again. Always the airport. 2 a.m. Rain on the terminal glass. Departure boards flickering with indifferent light. Lagos Murtala Muhammad International, doing what airports do. Receiving grief, dispatching hope, remaining completely unmoved either way. His firm had issued a final decision that afternoon. Return within 48 hours or the partnership dissolved permanently. He had told Adaeze at 7 p.m. She had not eaten since then. She had driven him here in silence, both of them understanding that something was about to happen that would determine everything, and that there was nothing to say in the car that would make the determination easier. Now she stood in the terminal with his boarding pass in her hand, watching him check his luggage, and she was doing the thing she hated most. She was making peace with loss. She was already building the wall. She was already deciding which version of herself would survive this. He turned around. He saw her expression. He walked back to her. "Come with me," he said. She stared at him. "Come to Seoul. The housing project is almost complete. 3 months remote and it's done. Come with me. Meet my world. Let me fight for us from the inside instead of trying to fight for us from here." Joon-soo. "I'm not asking you to give anything up. I'm asking you to trust me one more time." The departure board flickered. Seoul Incheon. Final boarding. "You terrify me," she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You terrify me too," he said. "Every single day. Since the market." She looked at him for a long time. At this man who had walked into her city rumpled and disoriented and holding her blueprints. At this man who had sat on the hood of a truck with her and not needed to fill the silence. At this man who had called his father and said I'm not marrying her and never once asked her to thank him for it. At this man who had looked at her work and said, "You built belonging." She reached down. She picked up the bag at her feet, the one she had packed that morning, and told herself she packed just in case, as if she had not known, somewhere deep and certain, exactly what she was packing it for. She handed him her boarding pass. "You better have good internet in Seoul," she said. "I have a deadline." He laughed, and it was the exact same laugh as the market. Unguarded. Real. Surprised out of him. He wrapped both arms around her and she held on with everything she had. Right there in the middle of the terminal, Lagos rain on the glass above them, the departure board counting down. 8 months later. Seoul. Spring. Cherry blossoms coming apart in slow motion above a rooftop. Adaeze and Joon-soo stood side by side over a table covered in blueprints. A new project, affordable housing bridging Lagos and Seoul. A joint initiative. Both their names on the proposal. Both their hands in the design. The door opened. Mrs. Kim came in quietly, as she always moved, with the particular silence of someone who had learned that presence was more powerful than announcement. She set 2 cups of tea down without being asked. Looked at the blueprints. Looked at Adaeze. "You designed the courtyard structure?" she said. "Yes, ma'am." She studied it. Her face was still. A long moment. "My husband's mother was from a village with courtyards like this," she said quietly. "He always said they were the most human thing in architecture. That a courtyard was how a family said, 'This space is ours and you are welcome in it.'" She looked at Adaeze directly. Not measuring anymore. Just looking. "He would have liked you." She left without another word. Adaeze stood completely still. "Did she just..." she started. "Don't say anything," Joon-soo said. He was grinning, that stunned, helpless grin. "She'll deny it." Adaeze laughed. Fully. Freely. All of her in it, every part she had kept guarded, every part she had kept safe, every part she had finally let out of the dark. He watched her the way he'd always watched her. Like she was something the world had made specifically to be known. There are things the heart holds long after the mind has tried to let go. Not because the heart is weak. Because it knows. It recognizes the things worth keeping even when fear says put it down, even when sense says walk away, even when the cost seems higher than anything you've ever been asked to pay. Adaeze Okonkwo had spent 28 years choosing safety. She had been very good at it. She had built herself a life that was solid and impressive and thoroughly, exhaustingly protected. And then she walked into a man in a market in Lagos, and he held her blueprints like they mattered, and he laughed like a person who had forgotten he was allowed to, and 6 months later she picked up a bag she had packed just in case and followed him onto a plane. She has never once regretted it. What the heart remembers, it never truly forgets. If this story moved you, if you saw yourself somewhere in Adaeze or in Joon-soo or in the particular ache of loving something that cost you, drop a comment right now and tell me which scene broke you. I read every single one. If you're not subscribed yet, do it now. New stories drop every week on this channel and they are made for people who feel things deeply. And if someone in your life needs this story today, a friend going through something, someone who keeps choosing safety over themselves, share this video with them. Stories travel furthest when they're sent with intention. Like this video if it was worth your time. I'll see you in the next one.